Hey, David Brewster here with an episode of Chordplay, and this is the Chords of Living Colour. And of course, we're going to be talking about Vernon Reid. And Living Colour formed in New York in 1984 and literally blew up on the scene in the late 80s after their album Vivid. And most people watching this are probably familiar with Cult of Personality, Living Colour's most famous song. But they had a lot of great music, and Vernon's an exceptional guitarist. And definitely I remember watching, videos on MTV, reading interviews with him in guitar magazines back in the day. And I was always interested because I noticed even when I was a kid that his approach to music and rock guitar and funk and this kind of fusion, jazz, experimental, side to his playing was radically different than everybody I was listening to. I was hopelessly obsessed with Van Halen and Steve Vai and Yngwie. And all of a sudden I heard Vernon Reid, and it was like a dog, hearing a high-pitched whistle. I was like, what? Vernon's musical approach and just the way he plays the guitar might confuse a lot of listeners' ears, especially if you're expecting something like AC/DC or Van Halen or Zeppelin or something like that. I mean, he can definitely play like that. But then there's jazz, there's fusion, there's funk, there's world music, there's all these other textures and elements in his music. It's more than just rock, right? But, if you wanted a better idea, just imagine taking Hendrix and John Coltrane and Eddie Van Halen, maybe Robert Fripp and Dr. No from Bad Brains. Put those 5 players in a blender, stir it up, pour it out, and it should sound something like Vernon Reid. The music in this lesson is going to come from their first 2 albums, Vivid and Time's Up, and they've released many other albums aside from those first 2. But we're going to focus on those early albums because they're the most popular and most people are familiar with that music. But I highly recommend go back and listen to some of their other albums, some of the more recent releases, and just check them out because there's a ton of stuff you can pick up. Whether you're a guitarist, a bassist, a drummer, or a vocalist, the whole band is just dynamite. The opening, that was Open Letter to a Landlord from Vivid, and I remember watching Saturday Night Live and seeing Living Colour play this, on TV. But it's something like this. And I really dig the fact that there's this kind of sneaky chromatic bass note. It's kind of walking up, with that chord progression. So it starts here. He's kind of doing these like Motown R&B, kind of Hendrixy, double stop fill here in the beginning. Like that, a double stop. And then another double stop right there. And then you're going to start with this. That's basically B flat over D. There's a B flat 5 with that D root note right there. And then it's B flat over E flat. And then this is interesting. You could think of it a couple different ways. I'm looking at that as E minor sharp 5 flat 9. And then there's an F at 9 right here. That's really crafty the way it comes up. That's really, really creative. And then just end with a B flat major bar chord and volume swell into that chord. And then it starts the verse. But one more time here. The next example comes from Desperate People from Vivid, and this is rockin', really cool riff, something like this. So it opens with this giant, E power chord. It's an E5 over B. So he's using those stacked power chords, which sound huge, right? And he's, racing through that chord, kind of just pummeling, the root and then the top part of the chord, separating the fretted part there with the bar with the root note. And then he switches that to B major. And then right here, it's like a G over B. And then a D over A, another stacked power chord right there. And then just go to A major. So you run through those, 5 chords, you've got this. Go back to that E over B. And then this is really crafty. This is like an A flat over C. I guess you could also think of that as G sharp right there. But you're playing, a little piece of this, A flat major chord over a C. Tons of tension in there too. Really, really cool. So A flat over C or G sharp over C, either way. And then it's basically F sharp over C sharp to C sharp major. And then E over B, like E5 over B to B major. And then that opens, the verse. So if you really look at Vernon's playing style, you'll notice he has this habit of creating these little triad-based, melodic chord progressions in his music. He usually picks through them, or he'll strum through them too. But take the bridge from Cult of Personality, arguably their most popular song, and you'll hear what I'm talking about. Something like this. And you can see we're using like these little fragments of chords. There's like B flat major, B flat major over D right there. So a little piece of F. And then a little piece of C. It's like C over E right here. And then a G and a G sus4 he's playing with. And then a little piece of D major. A little piece of A over C sharp. And then a little piece of F to C major. So it's really musical and melodic, but it's all chord based, and I love that kind of stuff. For another example of Vernon doing this, check out the song Type from Time's Up. And during the chorus, you'll catch him doing this. But that's a really cool guitar part, and it starts with that little piece of B major right there. And then it's a little piece of F sharp major, like that, but it's, F sharp over A sharp. Right there, you're going to basically spell out D major and then grab the sharp 11 right there, that raised fourth. That G sharp. And then you're going to raise that up to an E. Something like that. And then just play a little A triad, and then you're going to move back to this E over G sharp triad. Like that. And you'll find Vernon loves those inversions. You know, he loves kind of moving back and forth between those two chord types. You know, a straight major triad and then an inverted major triad. And it's very common in rock, but you'll definitely hear Vernon doing that all the time. So one more time here. And I love that raised fourth. You know, it's got a really cool kind of modern sound to it. Up next is another favorite of mine from Living Colour, Love Rears Its Ugly Head. And the guitar part's really interesting. It's very simple, but there's something very interesting that Vernon tapped into with this. So the guitar part in the beginning is like this. And then eventually, like once the verse starts, he starts, you know, fleshing that out a little bit more. And he's really just playing with those little dyads. You know, there's 3 chords. But it's really clever the way he mapped that out, because he's basically, you know, implying B7, A7, and E7. And those 3, you know, little partial chords live right there, which is really unusual. But I love that. You know, you're moving from here down a whole step and then up a half step. So it's totally playing with your ear. You're hearing this, you know, you're hearing this really odd kind of melodic contour, but it fits the song perfectly, and it's definitely a hook. You know, I mean, it catches your attention. Last examples from the song Funny Vibe from Vivid. I think this is my favorite Living Colour song. And it has the super funky Jimmy Nolan kind of Prince vibe to it. Something like this. This is the verse riff. And right there you can see we're kind of doing like this G9. He's flirting with the 11th, so it's like a G11. And then eventually the G13. So he's definitely grabbing all 3 of the extensions in G. You know, G9, G11, and G13. And it comes in this little kind of package right here where you've got where you're literally kind of just, you know, interchanging those 3 extensions here. And then right there. Really, really creative. And then occasionally they'll go down to like F sharp, you know, 13 right there. Really funky and super, super cool. Think Prince, you know, big time. Gonna wrap this episode of Chordplay with the Chords of Living Colour. And definitely, if you feel like your music and your listening habits and your playing habits and things, you know, with the guitar is a little stale, like maybe it doesn't seem fresh anymore, and you're like, man, I keep playing the same songs, I keep listening to the same albums, I keep doing the same thing on the guitar. I guarantee if you sit around and listen to Living Colour and notice Vernon Reid and start picking up some of his habits, it's gonna blow your world, you know, wide open, you know, because he definitely thinks outside the box. He's very forward thinking, very experimental and creative and playful, you know, with his music. I think that's why I've always liked him. because you can tell he's very creative. He approaches the guitar in a very playful way, and he just has this feel and this vibe. When he picks up a guitar, it's like, yeah, I want to hear that. Instead of somebody just shredding arpeggios blindly, it's like, no, I want to hear somebody make music. And that's what Vernon does. But he has his own kind of signature approach and his own musical fingerprints, really. Anyway, leave some feedback and some comments. Please subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.